Hey guys, and welcome back to my Star Wars The Clone Wars vlog series. And today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 5, Rookies. Now, this still is a very cookie cutter kind of story, but it was far more interesting to me because it focused solely on a bunch of original clone trooper characters. We were introduced to Fives, Heavy, and Echo, and they were at an outpost that would be on the lookout for any separatist ships, and they basically were protecting the Camino system. And actually, in this episode, Grievous decides to attack, infiltrate this outpost so that they can go and destroy Camino and cut off the clone supply, which at least that's actually a smart plan by this version of Grievous. This version of Grievous is still very, nothing much to say about him. He's still very basic villain who's just always angry all the time and doesn't seem to have many good plans. But at least this was a good effort, because what happened is that they send these battle droids that are they look kind of like battle droids, but they have gray metal and shorter heads. They don't have as long of a kind of snout on them, and they are definitely, and they have deeper voices, voices as far as droids go. And part of me is like, well, why couldn't this be the way that the standard battle droid is just by default? Because they're so much more competent and they're not like just tripping over their own feet and making stupid jokes to make the kids laugh. But then it's like, no, wait, they'd be too expensive. In one of the earlier episodes I watched, Dooku did comment, like, Grievous would just like bash a battle droid just out of anger, and Dooku's like, hey, these things are expensive. So there's that, They wouldn't have the budget to make all their battle droids competent, plus that would completely what's the word I'm thinking of? It wouldn't be what Palpatine slash Sidious would want. He kind of wants neither side to be really all that great. But yeah, so we're introduced to these three different clones. As of now, I don't yet know enough about each one of them to be able to tell who's who. Like, one just looks like your basic clone. Another has like some slight like tattoos on his temple here. I think he has like a goatee or something. It was kind of hard to tell with the lighting. And another one, oh, I'm already forgetting, but I think he had like some scars on his face or something. But they were just introduced to me watching this show, so I'm sure I'll get to know them later. Because then, and like all I could really tell right from the get go is that they were like, Heavy was the one who was like, oh, I want to see some action. And then it's like, oh, look, there's just a meteor shower. Aren't you excited? You want excitement? And he's just like, oh, a meteor shower. Great. Like the guy who always wants to go out, guns blazing, which, spoiler alert, that is actually what happens. Because later on, they find out the whole plan and they're the only survivors at the outpost, and they decide to try to destroy the outpost so that the all clear signal will stop, which will then alert the nearby Republic fleet. And Heavy has to go and detonate the bomb manually, and he sacrifices himself. He dies, which just from this one episode, it's like, well, that seems like a fitting end given the kind of individual he was. Oh yeah, and these droids, like, they can copy human voices. At one point, one of the droids puts on a clone trooper helmet and is able to emulate the clone's voice. Yeah, he still sounds has a little bit of hiccups in his voice and closes out with Roger Roger, like that was, at least that was kind of funny, but it's like, man, and one of them pulls out a sword later but then gets destroyed really easily, so didn't get to see them in action. They're still more competent than the regular battle droid, and I would have liked to see more of them, but oh well. and Commander Cody and Captain Rex. Now, I know Commander Cody, of course, because I watched Revenge of the Sith and I read some of the novels at the time, and he was in Gendy's Clone Wars series. They come to check it out. Captain Rex appears to be an ARC trooper. And of course, my clones from my Star Wars fanfiction were ARC troopers, and that was just based purely on when I saw Gendy's series. I was like, oh my gosh, ARC troopers are so cool, and I just like, the like epaulette that they wear and like the kind of skirt thing. Like they just looked cool. It's like rule of cool, I'm gonna make my characters ARC troopers because they look cool and they're badasses. So they come to check on the outpost. They find out what's going on, and they work together with this group of shinies, as they call them, which are, your armor's shiny, which means you've never seen combat. You guys are young. You're fresh recruits, basically. So that's a term I learned, and also throughout these first 5 episodes, the clones call the battle droids clankers, which is not a slang term that I've heard in any other Star Wars media before I watched this. So the era of Gendy series and Revenge of the Sith, like all the material that was between those time periods and after, like that term didn't exist, so therefore that term is never used in my fanfic, which it's like, a part of me was like, if I watch this series, I'm going to be introduced to the modern canon about clones, and my fanfic is going to seem very, very outdated. Which, I mean, that's just the way it is, but I just don't like, it's a slang term that works. I have no issue with it at all. I'm just like, if I had known about that, I would have used it in my fanfic, but, that was back during Revenge of the Sith. Times have changed. They've added more lore. And the episode ends with Echo and Fives being the survivors. Grievous runs because the Republic fleet comes to check, because they're like, oh, the all clear signal ended, so let's go check it out. And he flees, gets angry, as usual, like, whatever. And Echo and Fives get recruited into the 501st by Cody. Yeah, about that. Because anyone who at least knows anything about Star Wars will know that it's the 501st that is a big deal, and just, you also got the 501st cosplayers. I have a friend who lives in Colorado who actually is a member of the 501st down there, and she has a bunch of like Imperial and Stormtrooper like outfits, and they go to like before COVID, go to conventions, go to sports games, go to charity, and it's all for charity, really. But yeah, like I remember playing Star Wars Battlefront. Was it 1 or 2? It was probably, I forget which one, but they're the original Battlefront games. They were great. They were a big deal for me and my brother. But I remember how the story mode in one of them had you play through some Clone Wars and Revenge and some Clone Wars content, or it was set during the Clone Wars period. And you were a member of the 501st, and it culminated with, Order 66, and you had to hunt down. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a part in that campaign mode that you had to hunt down some Jedi at the end with Darth Vader or something, or I don't remember. It was so long ago, and but yeah, like once I heard 501st, I'm like, uh-oh. I mean, all clones are going to be forced to kill Jedi in the end. We already know that. Doesn't matter which group of clones you're in, it's gonna happen. Which always made me wonder, like, what would happen to, like, the clones that would get so much, like, physical or mental trauma that they would just have to retire. Which is kind of the idea behind how my fanfic ends, where the main character, the main clone, Dex, he gets enough bodily injury and mental trauma, that he does just retire and is kind of in a VA for clones or something. And but remember, I wrote this fanfic back in high school, so back then not all this information has been known that's probably in Clone Wars, but I always like to think about things like that. And then what if it's like, you know, you're not in combat, you're not whatever, you're retired, and Order 66 happens, and it's like you'd never know about it. And then you learn about it from being an outsider and being like, oh god, all these Jedi that I fought beside and look up to are all being killed by my brothers. That's super shitty, you know? I remember hearing people like in some comment sections on YouTube, unfortunately, saying that the whole Order 66 thing is explained by clones having a chip in their brains, which I think is a complete cop out. I like the idea better that they've been so conditioned and it's kind of a trigger word, which would leave hope for those who were retired or so badly injured or whatever that there was no way to be able to even know about it or see it through in the first place. Like, I don't know. I'm rambling now. One thing I noticed about this episode was that they said the word hell twice, which wouldn't be a big deal if this wasn't a Disney show. I mean, of course, it wasn't a Disney show back in the day because Disney hadn't bought Star Wars back when the show first aired. Now, I don't know when this episode actually aired in the context of TV, you know, when it was actually airing on TV. And it's still rated, TV PG or whatever. And yeah, the clones say hell twice, which it's like, for me as an adult, I'm like, that just adds some flavor. But it's like, depending on when this actually aired, whether it was actually in season 1 or if it happened later, it's like you can tell that the show is started out being really aimed towards kids, and then these guys say the word hell twice. One guy's like, what the hell, and it's just like, I don't know, hell isn't a HE double toothpicks is not like a big bad, 4-letter word, but it still is kind of shocking to hear it in a show that started out really geared towards kids. I know it gets much more darker and mature as the show goes on because, like any TV show, it will age with its audience. But yeah, that was just an interesting kind of thing I immediately noticed. Like, so yeah, and those are all the notes I really took. And, it wasn't a, like, amazing episode, I still was like, this is an animated show. This is started off as being for kids, whatever. It's Star Wars light in some respects, But I did appreciate that it focused entirely on the clone troopers. And it's going to take me a while to get to know the individual clones that this show creates and carries through the story. Like, eventually I'll be able to pair the names with then the personality and the physical markings of each individual. I mean, I do appreciate that at least one of them doesn't have any, like, different haircut, tattoos, scars, whatever. But he did get, like, kind of a handprint on the front of his armor when Rex was like, he killed this giant, like, space eel, and like he like touched some of its blood, which was like blue, and then he put his hand, being like, just kind of like placing his hand on his chest, like all right, come on, and then so he has that marking. He'll probably keep that marking on his armor from now on if his actual face doesn't get any additional modifications, so to speak. And then it just brings up a whole other kind of slew of thoughts about, like, where do they go for haircuts? Where do they go for tattoos? Do they have, like, clone specific barbershops or something? Do they have places in the galaxy that they're able to go to and get that kind of work done without judgment? Because of course they are still clones. There's definitely going to be a population of people in the Republic or who are neutral who do not look at the clones in a positive light, which was another idea I kind of put into my fanfic when there was a captain of a ship, a Republic ship, who was a non-clone, which of course we see in the show. This main ship that like Obi-Wan and Anakin have been on for just these first few episodes, he is a non-clone. He seems to be the guy who does kind of the introduction kind of thing, like very old school radio host kind of. Still don't know how to explain it. Um, but yeah, like I have this guy just, he makes it clear that he does not look very positively about clones. He's just like, yeah, you guys are just tools, you're freaks, you're whatever, Like he'd be the kind of guy who, when the Republic becomes the Empire, he would be the first to kind of be like, oh, me, I volunteer to stay in this military and I'd be more than happy to lead a ship full of non-clones, That kind of prejudice, like, of being different, of being other, and anyway. I'm just kind of letting my mind roam. Like, I know that with some of these episodes, I'm not going to have a huge amount to say, so it's kind of good to just kind of be talking about the content of the episode and then going on a tangent from there, which, it's only because I'm doing these vlogs that I'm able to kind of express these thoughts that, as you can tell, I've already had these questions. Watching this episode just brought those questions back. And I will say, I really, really hope that the answers that this show does give does not contradict my own view, because I'm still very, very attached to my own characters and their story. Which, I mean, 3 of them, their story ends at the end of the story. The other one is the survivor. So anyway, I still like to at least retain some amount of imagination, some creative freedom, Like, I want flexibility in my own creations. I don't want to be like, oh, these are the rules, I have to follow them, and if I break them, then it's super duper fanficky, But anyway, that's in the past. I keep bringing up this fan fiction, but I wrote in high school. I don't plan on making any changes to it. It's just, it's like with any story I've written, whether it's finished or not, original or not, I still got attached to what I created and the characters that I made from my own imagination, that it can be tough to have certain things kind of contradicted. And I only feel that way about fiction. I'm completely open to having myself challenged when it comes to actual history and all that, Because again, I can separate fiction from reality. It's fiction that I'm more rigid on, so that's just the kind of person I am. Anyway, I've been rambling now, but that is my vlog about rookies, and I will see you in the next one.